Good morning. Is it on? Good morning. Test, test. Hello? Good morning. Good morning, everyone. We're ready to get started. Hi, Tim. Not hearing me? No? Clark? Let's see. It's not loud. Now it's coming up. Now we're hearing it. Okay. Good morning. I've been Good morning. Let's get started, please. Can you hear me? I hate to interrupt the fellowship, but I got a lot of slides to get through. I don't know if I can get through all of them. Knock and it will be open to you. All right. I have been looking forward to presenting this material for a long time. I can't remember when exactly Larry asked me if I wanted to teach. It may have been maybe back as early as February or March. And I had been going through the book of Matthew and in particular looking at the Sermon on the Mount. And I was intrigued by the Beatitudes and started looking even deeper into each one of the Beatitudes and looking at the various ways in which Jesus used the Sermon on the Mount and the Beatitudes as an introduction to his thinking. The Sermon on the Mount gives us almost a transparent view into Christ's mind and the way that he taught, the way that he used words. He himself was the Word, but yet he was a master of words and knew how to use words and knew how to use concepts to teach the spiritual truths of God. And one of the things that he typically talked about, and that we know that he talked about repeatedly over and over and over again, and they are repeated in the Sermon on the Mount and in the Beatitudes, is he talked about the kingdom of God. And as we know, the kingdom of God, he was using that phrase metaphorically. He wasn't talking about a physical kingdom. He wasn't saying, I'm going to set up a throne and I'm going to be the conqueror of Rome. He was talking about a spiritual kingdom. He was using the word kingdom in a way that had nothing to do with an earthly kingdom. And Jesus used words like this over and over and over again throughout his ministry. And the more you look at the way Jesus used words, the more you realize that he had a whole lot more to say than what people were really able to comprehend. As I continued looking into this, I was very intrigued by the idea of, well, just how far does this idea go of Jesus using words in a spiritual context? It's true that he talks about ordinary objects and ordinary things. And sometimes he is referring to ordinary objects and ordinary things. For example, at the wedding of Cana, he was talking about a physical jar of wine and the physical miracle that took place there. But when he was talking to the woman at the well, he used the word water, and she thought he was talking about water. He wasn't talking about water at all, but yet he was talking about water, wasn't he? Okay? So I started looking at that in the context of the Sermon on the Mount, and one of the common things in the Sermon on the Mount that we're very familiar with is the speck and the log, right? Is he actually talking about a log? No, he's not talking about a log at all. He's not talking about a speck at all. But yet he is talking about a log, and he's talking about a speck. Okay, the log of hypocrisy, the log of being a know-it-all, the log of feeling like, hey, I know everything there is to know about God, and there's nothing that anybody or anyone can teach me, least of all this carpenter from Nazareth, who actually was the king of the Jews. And yet, he wasn't a physical, literal king, but he was a king. So in his teaching and in his methods of conversing with people, he used words and concepts in very special ways, in very specific ways. So these are some of the things that I looked at while I was going through this study. These are some of my sources. And one of the things that I want us to do is I want us, first of all, to look at the context. So we're in the Gospel of Matthew. This is a record of Christ's life. His audience for this particular message was the Jews. This is Matthew that is writing to prove that Jesus was the prophesied Messiah. He was the son of Abraham. He was a descendant of David. He was the king of the Jews. He talked about his kingdom, but his kingdom was a spiritual kingdom. The date of the book of Matthew probably was around AD 50. It appears that it may have been written before the fall of Jerusalem. The context of the Sermon on the Mount we have in Matthew 5 through 7, and there's also a parallel in the book of Luke. And we'll look at some of those parallels. I think you can ignore the daily Bible reading. I'm using the New Living Translation of the daily Bible, and I think it may not exactly match up. And then within the Beatitudes themselves, we have 7 or 8 verses where Jesus is speaking, and there is also a parallel in Luke chapter 6. But Luke chapter 6 does not include "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." That one is unique to Matthew. So let's look then at the Beatitudes. And the first thing you might notice about this translation, the New Living Translation, is it doesn't begin with the word blessed, but it begins with the words God blesses. And I want to talk a little bit about the nuance of that. God blesses those who are pure and realize their need for Him, who are poor, and realize their need for Him. Now, I want you to think about these verses in light of what I had just said. Is Jesus speaking literally here, or is He speaking more metaphorically, like the context of what it is that I'm trying to convey? God blesses those who are poor and realize their need for Him, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. God blesses those who mourn. They will be comforted. God blesses those who are humble. They will inherit the whole earth. God blesses those who hunger and thirst for justice or righteousness. They will be satisfied. God blesses those who are merciful. They will be shown mercy. God blesses those whose hearts are pure. They will see God. God blesses those who work for peace. They will be called the children of God. God blesses those who are persecuted for doing right, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. And then verses 11 and 12, God blesses you when people mock you and persecute you and lie about you and say all sorts of evil things against you because you are my followers. Be happy about it. Be very glad, for a great reward awaits you in heaven. And remember, the ancient prophets were persecuted in the same way. Now let's look at Luke's list. Very similar. Same translation, New Living Translation. God blesses you who are poor, for the kingdom of heaven is yours. God blesses you who are hungry now, you will be satisfied. God blesses you who weep now, for in due time you will laugh. What blessings await you when people hate you and exclude you and mock you and curse you as evil because you follow the Son of Man. When that happens, be happy. Yes, leap for joy. For a great reward awaits you in heaven. And remember, their ancestors treated the ancient prophets the same way. So Luke doesn't include the beatitude of seeing God, the pure in heart. But both Matthew and Luke record the later topic of the log and the speck in the eye and the concept of blindness. And one of the interesting things about this particular verse is that he says, let me find the verse 42. How can you think of saying, friend, let me help you get rid of that speck in your eye when you can't see past the log in your own eye? Hypocrite, first get rid of the log in your own eye, and then you will be able to see well enough to deal with that speck in your friend's eye. So here we have Jesus talking about seeing and blindness. And when you start looking, no pun intended, when you start looking, you begin seeing more and more how Jesus used the concept of seeing in a spiritual way. And this theme runs throughout the Bible. Just this morning, I picked up, I was looking at the daily Bible reading in the New Living Translation, and it was Habakkuk chapter 3, and Habakkuk said, I see God running through the desert. Did he see God running through the desert? Did he have a vision of God running through the desert? It's like every time I open the Bible now, there's something about seeing, and seeing the spiritual reality, and seeing that there's something deeper to be seen than what is obvious. Clark? Yes, and now your own spiritual vision has been clarified or purified, and you're able to perceive, you're able to see to a greater degree how I can help my brother, how I can truly help my brother rather than criticizing my brother. It's that spiritual perception of realizing, hey, I got problems of my own. I got things that I have to deal with. But yet, there's no room for me to be critical and harsh with my own brothers. Did I see another hand? Wally, did you want to say something? Yes. That's right. That's right. And the ability to be able to see what people need, that was an ability that Christ had. He could look at each individual, and he could look into their heart. We know that he could see into their heart. Okay? So he was seeing past the physical representation of the person. He was seeing past the physical representation of the objects that were all around him, and he was making spiritual points about all of those. So let's look back then at what we want to do with this particular study. What I'm hoping to do is to give you an exegetical analysis, and that just means we're going to look word by word at Matthew chapter 5, verse 8. We're going to get very specific, and we're going to try to discover what exactly does Jesus mean when he says, the pure in heart will see God. Is that some far off in the future when we're standing before the throne of God? Or is there some spiritual application that Jesus is saying, referring to seeing, referring to God, referring to the heart? Is there something that he's saying that is directly and immediately applicable to us today? Is there a way for us, like Habakkuk, to see God running through the desert? Is there a way for us to see the working of God's hand in our lives? And I believe that there is. But don't let me get ahead of myself. So let's pull over and park here for a second. We do have verses in the Bible that say very clearly and very plainly, is that the bell already? My goodness, I'm not. I've got 4 weeks here to get through. I might not get through the whole set of slides in 4 weeks. I was hoping to get through this morning. Okay, good. Okay. So let's look at the conundrums and the contradictions. John 1:18, no man hath seen God. Okay? So the Bible is its own best commentary. That's one of the things we do in an exegetical study. We don't try to go outside the Bible to try to explain the Bible, and we don't sit and try to imagine what we think that it means. We try to use the Bible and let the Bible tell us exactly what other passages in the Bible mean. 1 John 4:12, no one has ever seen God, but if we love one another, God lives in us, and his love is made complete in us. His love is perfected in us, some translations say. 1 Timothy 6:16, God is the one who alone possesses unapproachable light, whom no man has seen or can see. Now, it's interesting that Moses, you might remember, we'll get into this a little deeper, and it's mentioned in the book of Hebrews as well. I was hoping we could spend one entire Sunday in the book of Hebrews looking at this theme of seeing. That at one time Moses asked God, reveal yourself to me. Let me see what your glory looks like. So we have that story that we'll go back and we'll look at. And then Colossians 1:15, he, being Jesus, he is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of every creature. So here's my little teaser for next week. There are many, many ways of seeing God. The more you look, the more you'll see. All right, that's it for today. Thank you.